Welcome, everyone. In this video, we're going to review the red cards of the Legend of Lils expansion of the Vibes TCG. We're going to first go through all the penguin cards and then through the action cards. The first card we have is Lil Shaker, which says, Act. Pick two cards in your ice and put them on the bottom of your deck. Choose a red penguin that produces three pudge for the rest of this cycle, three red pudge. It's a two fish for one vibe. So overall, I think the only way this card can be good is if there's some sort of deck that's a red deck, which I think there's a lot of cards that support this build, where it's like this red deck that basically continues to flop and unflop their own penguins, playing a bunch of actions, like this kind of like miracle type build. And so, yeah, so if this miracle type build works, this card might be very good in it because you'll have a lot of cards in your ice. And having your penguins produce, you can basically make a ridiculous amount of pudge with this because if you have like a have an encore, you can then use the penguin multiple times. So if that deck is good, this card might be good in it, not guaranteed. But yeah, so I'm still questioning if that deck is good, just because I think it's going to struggle to deal with just the just kind of just play aggressively Coliseum type decks. But we'll see. Next, we have the two wizards, Wizards of Balloons and Wizards of Feathers. So I'm going to talk about all the wizards just in general. So these are the ones that are basically two fish, one vibe, and produce one pudge that can be two different colors according to the same color wheel that those relics were, the potions. So overall, I think the wizards are great. If you're making a multicolored deck, it's just a good way to smooth out your mana. I think that, yeah, I think it'll just depend on if the multicolored deck exists. Like if there's a red purple deck, this will probably be in it, at least some copies. And if there's a red blue deck, maybe less so because red blue is going to be a very aggressive deck, which might not like the one vibe. I do think that these wizards are significantly better than the other wizards from the first set, just because entering flopped is just so painful. I would rather produce one less pudge and not enter flopped. Like entering flopped is just such a big disadvantage, just because the game is so fast. So overall, I love these wizards, and I love making two color decks. So I think these will be very good for that. Lil Bamboo. So it's just a standard 3/6. Red didn't have a 3/6 before. It's a Lil. I really think we're past the point where we can justify playing penguins with no text on them, especially because the three drop is probably the most contested slot, and we'll get to two of them, two three drops soon. So I really don't see this seeing any play, unless being a Lil is so important. But again, like right, we're gonna get to two other much stronger three drops. The only vanilla cards I think I see play moving forward are either like the penguin with balloons because it's the only 2/5, or the 1/2s just because there's not anything else at the one drop right now. Next, we have Little Daydreamer. I think this card is super solid. It's basically like Daydreaming Penguin, but red, and it's bigger. It's a three fish, three vibe. Choose a penguin with vibe three or less. Ice that penguin, ice this penguin. So if there's some sort of like control red deck, this would go in it. I think it's like the main challenge with this card is just actually the three drop is so competitive. Like you've got Sneaky Penguin and you've got Peace Out Penguin and you've got Lil Singer, which we'll get to next. So, but I think this card is really good, especially because doing the from two vibe to three vibe is there are additional targets in there as well. Next is Lil Singer. So Lil Singer, this card is amazing. I at first didn't quite get why it was so strong, but after watching it in the sneak peek event, I think this card is one of the best cards in the set. Right, it needs to work in the exact right deck. But okay, so what it says is it's a three fish five vibe. Again, three fish is very competitive. Choose another unflop penguin in your huddle and flop it. Put a vibe counter on that penguin. So you might say that seems kind of terrible. You're just flopping your penguins, but the reason it's so good is it gives you so much control on if you want to win or lose the vibe check. And that is just a really powerful thing in general. Plus, I've been playing around with this in leaning tower decks, right? For a leaning tower deck, this is so good. It's also really, really good with Bashful Swordsman because you can basically play the Bashful Swordsman and then save it for a later turn by flopping it. And on top of that, it's really good with Popcorn Penguin because one of the problems with Popcorn Penguin is they can Godam it. But this you can play on curve before Popcorn because typically you'd have to do either a sliding penguin with popcorn, which means you have to do a four fish into four fish, or you wait for inspiring story to protect your penguin your popcorn from Gotham. But with Little Singer, you can just naturally roll from three into four. So this card is just so good with popcorn penguin as well, to protect it from Gotham. So overall, I think this card is great. I think it's going to see a lot of play, and it already has in the sneak peek event. All right, Lord of the Lightning, another three vibe. one fish, or three fish, one vibe. Whenever a Lil in your huddle is flopped, boosts Penguin's vibe by one for the rest of the cycle. This must be terrible. First of all, there's just way better things in the 3 drop. And second of all, like, I just these things that just boost a penguin just for 1 cycle. Like, let's compare this to what's it called? To the Screaming Penguin. Screaming Penguin starts with 6 vibe and goes up 2 per action. Here, this only goes 1. Maybe I mean, obviously there's gonna be some deck that makes this ridiculously big, but I would say, like, if you're going through all this flopping and unflopping, there's something way better you can do. And we'll get to, like, Lil Introvert later, which is, like, so much better than this. So I think this card is absolute garbage and will not see any play. Little Comic. Little Comic, I think, is very interesting. It's 4 fish, 1 vibe. Whenever this penguin enters your huddle, choose a player. That player may reveal their hand. You may pick a penguin card from their hand and ice it. If you do, that player draws a card. So I think this card is really strong for actually maybe not even its main ability, but more for looking at your opponent's hand. So if you're playing any sort of controlling deck, one of the big questions is, especially if you're like doing a drop of attention deck, when you want to do your board clear, do they have a counter spell in their hand? Or if you do a board clear, are you in a better position than they are after the board clear? So with Little Comic, you can basically play that, assess the entire game situation, and decide if you want to do the board clear that turn or not. And so because of that, I think Little Comic is really strong. Plus, right, maybe you look at their hand and there's one penguin card in there that you can't really deal with after the board clear. So I think for any controlling deck, this card is potentially good. But again, four drop, you're competing with Run It Back Penguin as well as Popcorn Penguin. So I'm not really sure if it sees play or not, but I think it does. It is a really interesting control card. So I really like it, and I'm hoping it's good. And I think there is a certain type of deck it's good. I feel like in general that type of deck is not good in vibes in general. So that makes me think that this card might end up not seeing play. But if that type of deck is good, then this will probably be in it, at least a few copies. All right, Penguin Who Shakes. Again, a 4 fish, 1 vibe. Now this card is crazy. Whenever you play a red action, put a vibe counter on this penguin. As long as you have 3 or more vibe counters, it produces 3 pudge and has the ability, whenever this penguin is flopped, remove 3 vibe counters from it. Okay, so it's kind of like Little Shaker, kind of like the same concept where, okay, so let's think about this. So you play red action. So look, again, like this versus Lord of the Lightning is here the vibe counters are permanent. Like they become vibe counters. Then you can remove them to make a lot of pudge. So okay, so in this like crazy, like again, I'm really struggling to see in my mind how this deck works. But there's some sort of deck with like Penguin Who Shakes, Little Shaker, a bunch of actions, a bunch of flopping, unflopping, drawing cards. I think the whole thing with that deck is like, right, you can play a lot of actions, draw a lot of cards, or I guess more like cycle because there's not really that much card advantage in red, like directly by playing actions. But then at the end of the day, how do you win the game? Is it a Screaming Penguin or is this actually the win condition? I'm not sure. I don't know if this deck is good or not. But I could see if this like Miracle Red build works, then this card could be very strong in it. It's one that's hard to assess for me. All right. Next, we've got Squibblestone the Wise. All right. Oh, this is our first of the new swordsman. 4 fish, 1 vibe, a red and a blue pudge. Choose a flop below and ice it. I think this is absolute garbage. I do not think these will see any play for a few reasons. So first of all, they're so vulnerable. 1 vibe, got him, will counter this. Any sort of other removal will counter this. Plus, what a twist would counter because they'll just unflop the Lil. Second, it only targets Lils. So okay, and it requires pudge of two colors. Now, all that being said, it is card advantage if you can get this off repeatedly. So maybe there's some sort of deck. If like I guess if there's some deck that's full of Lils that are always flopped, then and you are already playing a 2-color deck, sure, then the new swordsman might see play. But I think overall they seem very weak. So we'll see. Um, but yeah, my initial thought is that these are not going to be very powerful. All right, now Little Introvert. Now this is the payoff card. I think that when I was very critical of Lord of the Lightning, I think Little Introvert is the opposite of that. So it's five fish, 7 vibe. So already you can see the base stats of this are just already super strong. It's already stronger than a Screaming Penguin. It's already 5/7 is about as big as you're going to get at 5 vibe. And it says whenever this penguin is flopped, boosts his vibe by 7 for the rest of the cycle. So let me just play this out in a leaning tower context. You have a leaning tower on the board. You have a little introvert on the board. You have a little singer on the board. You play your little singer on the little introvert. So now it gets a +1 counter. So it's 8 vibe, gets flopped. Now it's 15 vibe, and it participates in the vibe check. So just by these two cards and Leaning Tower, you have a 15 vibe in the vibe check each turn. Plus, it grows bigger turn after turn. So I think this card is going to be good. So it either can be good in the Leaning Tower deck concept, or it can be good in this like red, like continuously flopping, unflopping concept. So I think in either of those decks, this seems like it's going to be the win condition because this could easily get to 20, 30 vibe, which in most games should be good enough, especially if you have some removal, because let's say they have one Bunkus or something, you can still remove that. All right, Simon Smasher. All right, this penguin can only act if you played a red action this cycle. Choose a relic and ice it. Okay, so it's infinite relic removal. It's going to be hard to protect because it's one vibe. But if your opponent is playing a lot of relics and doesn't have an answer to it, maybe it's good. Okay, it can't really take care of caffeine because it'll be flopped. So it needs like a have an encore or something to unflop it. Coliseum, yeah, I mean, I think Caution Fun was talking about trying to do this for Coliseum. So you drop this the turn before you play Coliseum. So that could work. But again, is that good? Because right, they play Coliseum. If they have a caffeine out, you then need to have an encore off the top of your deck. Otherwise, you just need any card off the top of your deck. I don't know. I think it's a little fragile to deal with Colosseum. If there's a bunch of relics out there, I could see this being like you play it, and then it's like if they don't have removal for it, you win the game type card. And if they have removal for it, great, you did a 1-for-1. So I don't know. I could see the seeing play, but it does seem I don't know. I'm very skeptical on the one vibe. But maybe I guess if you have Trust Fall, so with Trust Fall you could protect it from a piece of removal. So yeah, maybe yeah. So I guess you'd play Trust Fall in the deck that runs this anyway. So anyway, I do think red got a lot of tools, a lot of like good cards here so far, like just seem that they could be good on their own. I just don't know exactly the shell of the deck that they would go into. All right, Lil Juggler enters flopped. Act. Choose an action, cancel it, return it to its owner's hand, and return this penguin to its owner's hand. This must be too slow, right? So it is nice because it can help you against that like final turn. Like let's say you're playing against green and they have a what's it called? They have the everybody stay clam or the cleanup good. So this you have this on the board, you cancel it, return it to its hand, and then yeah, they but the thing is it goes back to their hand. So okay, so let's say you're talking about buddy up with yellow. Then they just recast it. And so it doesn't really work against buddy up. It doesn't really work against flippers because yellow probably has a ridiculous amount of penguins out at that point. It could work against green, but the problem is it goes back to their hand and they can just play it next turn, and you play it and it enters flopped. So, I don't know. I think it's too slow. I don't think it's good. I think if you want to cancel actions, you got to play something else. You got to play like Spring a Leak. Yellow has a good cancel action card. Green has some good one. Like there's good options for canceling actions these days. But I just don't think that this is it. This is just seems way too slow. All right, Lil who breaks free. Whenever this penguin leaves the huddle, draw a card. Okay, so this is the Statue of Liberty, a card that could have work with Statue of Liberty, right? If you keep bringing Statue of Liberty in and out of play, you have this in play. This keeps bouncing in and out. You get a bunch of cards. Is that good enough? I don't know. On its own, it's terrible, right? 6 fish, 3 vibe. And then I guess it's good like board clear protection. So okay, so if you're doing a deck with like have an encore or not have an encore, a drop of attention, maybe this is good because it's like when you clear the board, you get a card. And you just needed it on the board to get the pudge to play the board clear. Yeah. Okay, so I think in Statue of Liberty decks, this might get a slot, but again, I think it's too slow for that. I think we'll want to use the next card we're going to talk about for that, the Zooming Penguin. Um, Or if you, yeah, so in some sort of controlling deck, maybe. Yeah, maybe in some controlling deck, it'll work because, but again, I think at that point, it's too slow. I think I'd rather have something like Trust Fall and keep a penguin on the board than just getting this card because it's also 6 fish. 6 fish is a lot. 6 fish, you should be doing something crazy. And by something crazy, we mean Lil Zoomer. So this is a Six fish, 3 vibe. Whenever this penguin enters the huddle, choose a non-speedy penguin and return it to its owner's hand. This card is really, really good. I think that this card will see a bunch of play in the right type of decks, just because returning something like right, people are already playing risk-taking penguin, and risk-taking penguin is so bad because half the time it doesn't work. This works every time. Plus, imagine this with Statue of Liberty. Now that's a combo where this is bouncing in and out, and you keep returning everything to your opponent's hand. Like, sure, against yellow that might not work well, but against something like green, it would do such a good job. And even this, like, you could even bounce your own stuff somehow. Like, if you had, like, a little zoomer going in and out with Statue of Liberty, maybe bouncing Pop and Pete and then bouncing Statue of Liberty more. I don't know. Maybe that's just you're gonna accomplish nothing at the end of the day. But anyway, I think this card is good. Well, we know it's good because in the sneak peek it was good. And I think it's also just like just think about this in caffeine. Like, those decks that just don't play Pudge, then enter the huddle effects are really important. So I think this card is good. Lil Insomniac. Okay, I think whenever you play a red action, put vibe counters on this penguin equal to the Pudge cost of those actions. But how is this better? I think this card is bad. I don't know. It just seems so slow. And I still think the problem is the thing that you're trying to win with, it can't just be, I'm going to make a big penguin. Just making a big penguin is not enough. Like, they can just remove it with not your keys. They can clear the board. They can just flop it with caffeine. If the payoff is make a big penguin, then you want something like a little introvert. Look, 5 fish starts with 7. So it's already a threat before you've done anything. So it's already oversized for its fish, or like the max size you can basically be, and then it has upside. Here we're starting with one vibe. It's too slow. It's the payoff is not strong enough, and it's 8 fish. For 8 fish, like the effect has to be game winning, and this is not. So I think it's a subpar. Or at least it has to be like, card advantage neutral, where it's just like, okay, it like Penguin Who Zooms or something like, something that does something on the board state immediately or can get you out of a tricky situation. But this, no, I think this card is bad. All right, so that's the end of the penguins. So let's jump over to the actions. The first action is here's Pengy, which says look at the top card of your opponent's deck, draw a card. Okay, so this is basically as simple as we can get into a one fish or a one pudge draw card, right? That just does nothing else. Because this ability is as about as minor as you can get. So, right, if we really need to do this like cycle for one red pudge that we want to be able to always work, then I guess we would play this. I do wonder if there's not better cards for this. This just seems like such a marginal benefit. And if you're just cycling a card, like right, you have stuff like have non-core, which unflops penguins for this kind of condition. You have what's it called? Hit the high note, which returns a relic to your opponent's hand. But each of those are conditional. So I guess if you really need an unconditional trigger, you could play this. But I think this is not like, this just seems like it's just not strong enough of a card to warrant being included. Next, we have Pack Attack. So this card is definitely good in terms of building your collection because you get, and I made a whole video about this where you can get basically 12 cards instead of 6 cards per pack in the online client. Whether it's good or not, this kind of seems like the type of card that we really don't want to be good because it's just like a pay to win type card if it is actually good and you have to play a bunch of games. That being said, it's definitely a fun card. I think it's not going to be consistent enough that you just, because you could just get absolute garbage in it, like just stuff that doesn't work with your deck, right? The whole point of card games is that you're supposed to have a lot of synergy with the cards in your deck. That being said, it is a one pudge red card that can trigger off like a peace out or trigger off other chains of cards, other abilities. So maybe it's good. Definitely fun. I kind of hope it's not good. It's just one of those cards that if it's good, it was probably made too strong. Next, we have Sheesh. So this is it's a saucy action for one pudge, one red pudge. That says you can only play this action if it's face down as a rod. Flip this card over to play out. To play it, this action does nothing. Whenever you play a red action, return this card from your ice to your hand. Now this, I think this card is really good. I played it in a deck for a little bit and then it got banned because there were some issues with some bugs with it. But while I played it, I thought it was very powerful. Now it's only powerful in the type of deck where you have a kind of controlling red deck that doesn't really care about having a lot of rods. And so that is one worry I have with this card, which is I do think that Vibes is continuing to go in the direction of You just want to kind of play aggressively and ramp out rods as fast as you can. But if we can have decks that aren't doing that, then this could be good. I think this is not a card that you want 4 of in your deck anyway, because when you have 2 of them, it's, like, really hard to get them played again. But there's so many interesting things you can do with this, just because it basically negates the card advantage. So, for example, like, if you play this with Overwhelm with Knowledge, you can get it back in your hand, and that makes actually the second half of Overwhelm with Knowledge actually give you card advantage, which is not how that card typically works. It's great for a drop of attention because it comes back to your hand. It's great as an activator. So any deck where you're kind of wanting to maintain a big hand, you're not really worried about having a lot of rods, and you need to just keep having activators over and over again. This card is very good. So I think there's definitely a type of deck that this works in. Is that deck strong? Not sure. But it's definitely a card that I for the few limited time that I played it, I thought it was working very well. Then we have toss up. Very similar concept to Sheesh, which is flip a coin. If heads, draw a card. If tails, return its action to your hand. Um, so I do think that this, like compared to here's Pengi, is even better because like this right here, the ability is you can just maybe have it again back in your hand as a new activator. That being said, I really don't like in general these like flip a coin effects, just because often you'll be in a situation where you need one of the two results. And in that case, it's just not good. Now, this card is interesting because it can do stuff for you like infinite. So, like this with Screaming Penguin, you theoretically could have infinite vibe. So, whenever you want to talk about with this card, it makes the situation where theoretically, with the right luck, you can pretty much make anything happen. But yeah, I think again, I think like when I look at here's Pengi, Pack Attack, Sheesh, and Toss Up, like they all kind of do the same thing as there are these little activators, but Sheesh is just so much more consistent. So I think it's by far the strongest of these four. Again, maybe Pack Attack is stronger. I could see that maybe, but these other two, I just don't. Again, but I'm very focused on building my decks for consistency and not for like high rolls. All right. Next, we have our multicolored action. So there's going to be going to the color wheel that we have in the set. So flip a flapjack, choose a Lil with vibe one, return it to its owner's hand, draw a card. Okay. So is this good or not? Um, it's kind of interesting because it should be easy to counter. Okay, so you could do to your opponent's Lil or your own Lil. Um, so if you have a Lil that has a good like coming into the board effect. Maybe if you do this with like with a board clear, you get your cards back in your hand and then you clear the board and you get card advantage. Or not card advantage, you're just kind of neutral. Well, I guess if you're thinking about the board clear, then yeah. But then, I don't know. It just seems like too conditional, too fragile. I would say this is not good. Especially because like to require one pudge of two different colors, the card has to be amazing. And this just I don't know. I just don't see it. I think it's too conditional and the effect is not strong enough, and it's too easy to counter by just either changing the penguin's vibe or by just icing the penguin that it's targeting. All right, Honey, I Shrunk the Peng. Choose a penguin. That penguin becomes a lil for the rest of the cycle. Draw a card. Okay, so this is similar to like Bearish Sentiment or Trust Fall, or we already have a lot of these two pudge cycle cards. Um, I think, yeah, I don't know. Like, right, with Red Mega Penguin, this can get doubled. If you need a thing with a bunch of Lils, I don't know. I just feel like two punches has always been a lot for these. Like, right, when we have these like little activators, we have a lot of these one punch activators now. So like a two punch activator just seems like a lot, especially when we're competing with Trust Fall, because Trust Fall is just so good. Right? When we think about Trust Fall can protect you from getting iced. It can get you out of range of a removal. It can get your opponent's penguin in the range of removal, and it can help you win a vibe check, and it can help you lose a vibe check. So Trust Fall is so flexible and does so many things. This, yeah, maybe there's like some things it does. Like, right, maybe it works with the swordsman. Yeah, okay, so you do this with the swordsman, but again, the swordsman, yeah, so okay, so maybe with the swordsman. So, right, maybe there's a world where the little swordsman and this work together. But again, right, then it's again, there's so many conditions that have to be met correctly for that to work. So I don't know. I don't think this is good, but I could definitely be wrong on that. Layer lasagna. So this is the other two color card. Now this card I think is much better than flip a flapjack. It says choose a low with five vibe five or less, or a non-low with vibe five or greater and ice it. So in general, right, we in vibes, all the like two pudge removal is conditional. Now, that being said, right, so what would we compare this to? So, right, sunburn a penguin, like this seems better than sunburn a penguin because, right, you can do a lil with 5 or less or non-lil, right? So lils generally have 5 or less, and non-lils generally have 5 or greater, but not really. I don't know. The lil is always they call them lil, but they're not actually small. I think they're about roughly the same size as the regular penguins in terms of their vibe. So they're maybe physical size, but not vibe size. So I don't know. But yeah, I think this is right. This is unconditional from the standpoint of like, like Walk the Runway or Adventure Squad, they can counter it. And so like the most unconditional removal is not your keys, which costs 4 yellow pudge. And so I do really I've been playing a lot of the red purple combo in Sneak Peek, but I never really played this card. And the reason I never played it is because it didn't work with Prosperous Penguin due to a bug where it doesn't recognize this as a two pudge action. So yeah, I don't know. I think this card can be good. It really would be a little meta dependent, but and there are a lot of different removals. But especially if you're playing Prosperous Penguin, I could see this being like an option. So you basically have like just one or two of these in your deck so that you can pick it out with Prosperous Penguin if you need it from your ice. Next, we have Ride the Train. It says draw a card. You may move any number of other cards named Ride the Train from your ice to the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw a card for each card moved this way. Okay, so this could be good. Again, in the like purple red combo, if you're icing a lot of your own deck, like if you're just waiting to draw ride the trains, because the first one is basically just a cycle, the second one is a card advantage. So if you have a way to get a bunch of ride the trains into your ice that is just naturally happening in whatever deck you're playing, then this could be really good. If you're just playing it as a straight up, just hey, I have 4 of these in my deck, I think it's way too slow. But I guess it's an activator with an upside, right? Compared to like Honey, I Shrunk the Pangs, this is like a much less conditional upside, where it will just, the upside will happen over the course of the game. So in a long, grindy control deck, maybe with some sort of way to get your ice filled. Also imagine like if you're playing against blue, if you're playing against blue and they're icing your deck, this could be pretty good because you just get some card advantage. So I don't know. I'm I'm kind of in the middle on this. I think there might be some decks that work with this if they have those type of mechanics in them. Band together. Search your deck for a penguin card, reveal it, shuffle your deck, put it on top. Okay. So overall, this is negative card advantage because you spend a card and don't get a card. You put it on top, which also means if you win the vibe check, it just becomes a rod. So you have to be losing the vibe check. But okay, I guess if you pay 3 red pudge, you can probably flop all your big penguins. So yeah, so if you really, really need a penguin for some combo to work, sure, maybe. But I feel like with vibes, you just play 4 copies of every card you need, and you'll just naturally draw them. So maybe in that like 4 of a kind deck, this could be good. Um, I don't know. I feel like this is like looking for a combo deck that we just have nowhere near the support for. But yeah, anyway, I think this card is bad for now, but it could be good later, depending on if some sort of like combo decks where you really need a very specific set of penguins is just so good that it's worth the card advantage loss and the risk of losing the vibe check or winning the vibe check and then losing the card. All right, enter the bounce house dimension. As an additional cost to play this action, return a rod you control to its owner's hand, draw a card. So, okay, so comparing this to Bounce House Rod, this is much more like the Lil Penguin whose belly aches, Lil Penguin whose belly aches, or Little Bellyache, or whatever that was. Because this happens in the action phase, you will be wanting to return action cards to your hand, probably. So, in this situation where you're like doing this red deck where you're playing a bunch of actions, this could be great because you maybe have an encore as an action, and then you do this, get your encore back, play that, unflop a bunch of penguins, draw a bunch of cards, reflop your penguins, draw more cards, play some more actions. So yeah, I think it could be good, but 3 pudge is kind of expensive. But you also draw a card from it, and well, I mean, right, because it's not card advantage, you get your rod back to your hand. So I think I could see this being good in that like action heavy miracle red deck. I'm just not sure exactly how to build that deck because yeah, I don't know. It's one of those decks where, like, someone's gonna have to find the right balance of actions to penguins and win conditions and removal. So, But I think that deck could be good, and if that deck is good, there's a chance that this card is in that deck, but it also might not be. So anyway, because it also like competes with Sheesh, because right, Sheesh is already like using up your rod for something else. So I don't think Sheesh and this card can really be like too many copies between them in a deck. Good night pings. Eh, Your opponent's actions and ice cannot fly ice or flop penguins in your huddle for the rest of the cycle. Okay, so this is some sort of finisher. Like imagine they play everybody stay clam, you play goodnight pings. They play board clear, you play this in response. Yeah, so in some sort of like controlling meta, like this could be a good anti-control card or anti-buddy up. Right? They play buddy up, you play this. The problem is you're already paying for Pudge, but maybe this is a deck, right, where Pudge is very easy to come by because you have um all these effects. So okay, maybe. I could see it, but it's four Pudge is a lot. And so I think this is conditionally depending on what the metagame is. So I think this probably won't see play, but there's a chance that there's decks where this does matter. All right, now this card is crazy. Cross the river, 8 Pudge. That's so much. I don't even know how you get to 8 Pudge. Like I guess if a lot of your penguins are producing 3 Pudge, I could see it. Pick 2 non-red action cards in your ice and return them to your hand. This action costs 1 less for to play for each action you've played this cycle. Okay, but so now so we need to have a multicolored deck. I guess we play a bunch of red actions. This becomes cheaper. I mean, it's card advantage. Um, we get two. I don't know. Surely there's some deck where this is used. If that deck is good, that's a question. I don't even know if that deck is good. Um, but if it were good, yeah, is this card even good in that deck? I don't know. I think this card is not good. I think it's too expensive, too slow, and too conditional. But I guess over time as the multicolor decks, we keep getting more and more multicolor support. Eventually, this could be good. I think, maybe. So anyway, I'm not sure. So let's take a quick look out at the end and looking kind of at all the red. So overall, there's this really theme that I'll call like Miracle Red, which is just really based around cards like Sheesh and Penguin Who Shakes, Enter the Bounce House, where it's really just about playing a bunch of actions in the same turn. I think that theme definitely got a lot of support, and we already had that a little bit with Red Mega Penguin, in the first set, but it never really quite took off. So hopefully these new cards, like I think there's a lot of potential there. And then we also have a lot of potential in the I'll call it like the Red Bruiser category. We've got like Lil Singer, which is like an absolute bruiser card, and we have Lil Zoomer, which is the same, where these are just cards that are just for these decks that are just fighting for board and just trying to win like that. So like Little Zoomer and Lil Singer are both super strong for that archetype. Then we've also got that like miracle archetype, and then we've also got some control cards. Like we've got Lil Common, which I think is a really good control card, and maybe even Lair Lasagna could go into like a purple red control deck. So I think there's a few directions here for red to go, which I think overall red was one of the colors that needed the most help, based on how powerful the first set was, and so I think this definitely is going to help them. Whether it's going to be enough, not sure yet, but I definitely think there's a lot of potential here. All right, so that completes the red cards. Thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.